And we're live,
Everybody,
everyone.
I see it. It's live now, correct?
Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience here. What we are pulling off is a feat that is a little more difficult than we anticipated, but we're here, and I appreciate your patience. What we have today is going to be a lot of fun. We actually have both Martin Chuck and Martin Hall and myself on. I will just be the moderator from here in New York City. Martin Chuck will be in the Raven Golf Club in Phoenix in his studio. You Revolution golfers will know that well. He shot a ton of video from there, and he's going to be doing some demonstration from inside there. Martin Hall is at his cottage in England, so we are literally coming to you from all points in the world. But before we get started, I just want to explain a little bit about this. We are literally doing this live. We're using webcams, and different people are going to have different internet connections. So there might be a slight delay, and if there is, we're going to do our best to be able to keep that together for you, so it doesn't there's not too much of a delay. So the way this is going to go down is this. I'm going to introduce Martin Chuck and Martin Hall, who you all know. They have a series of topics that they want to go over that's going to cover from some of the observations from the latest Open Championship that Henrik Stenson won. There was a great display of golf in a lot of different ways, and both Martins have gotten together and really talked about that and have pulled out some awesome information that they're going to be able to share with you. From putting to three-wood, how Henrik Stenson used his three-wood, to course strategy, to some of the chipping and pitching that Phil Mickelson displayed, to some of the actual swing, some of the things that Phil Mickelson's working on with his full swing. So Martin Hall will be joining us in just a second. Martin Chuck, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. Thanks, Justin. Great to see you. And this is a global thing we're trying to pull off here with Revolution Golf, and it's awesome to do that. To the Revolution golfers, I just want to say hello. Hope you're really enjoying the PGA Championship. And for me, I've been blessed to be a Revolution golfer for a number of years, and I've gotten to meet a lot of you because you've come down to the Raven to see me. But I got to tell you what an honor it is for me to be on the faculty with great coaches such as Martin Hall and Jim McLean and Sean Foley and Andrew Rice and of course Don Saladino, trying to keep us all in shape and doing the right thing physically. But what a neat thing. And to pull this off, Justin, thanks for putting this together. I'm excited to be here and share what I can along with Martin Hall. I know that. And I think I say two Martins are better than one.
Well, that's exactly right. And so why we're bringing Martin Hall on, Martin Chuck, MC,
yeah,
will be going that for the rest of the time. Why don't you take us through something, whatever you want to, as far as one of your observations from the Open Championship?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, while we kind of get Martin Hall back on here, we talked earlier this week, Martin and I, about the success Henrik Stenson has been having hitting his three-wood. I've got TrackMan running in the background. I've hit a couple of shots. And Henrik's a good-sized fellow. I think he's in the 6'1" range, maybe taller, 6'2". And he's capable of swinging his three-wood north of 110 miles an hour, 110, 112 miles an hour. So he's able to do some really nice things with that three-wood. He had many, many three-woods. In fact, in this week's Golf Week, and I meant to bring it out just to kind of talk about that article, they discussed that three-wood. He has a 13-degree three-wood. Mine's set at 13 degrees as well. He swings it at high speed, and he can land that ball up there north of 260 in the air, 265, 270 in the air with this three-wood. Now, for those of you that remember, Henrik Stenson kind of fell off the face of the earth for a little while professionally. He kind of got sideways with the driver, and I've been stuck there too. I think Martin Hall would chime in on this as soon as we get him up live, is that we all strive for more distance. We all want to maximize. The latest thing is maximize our numbers. Well, in trying to maximize our numbers sometimes, it doesn't necessarily mesh very well with our physiology. Now, TrackMan, I use it every day with students. I love it. It helps me be a better coach for certain. And what it does is it says, okay, if you're going to hit an optimized tee ball, that optimized tee ball is going to carry let's say, for example, you're a 100-mile-an-hour swinger. Well, for 100 miles an hour to hit it, say 240 yards in the air, you need centered contact. You need a reasonable angle of attack. You need very little face-to-path deviation in the strike. So what's great about it is Henrik has the ability with his speed to actually catch the golf ball on the way down a fraction. And on my TrackMan, I've got the numbers here on my phone. You know, and this situation really isn't about TrackMan, but you know, I put 102 miles an hour on here. I hit down on the ball. I hit down on the ball 2 degrees, which is a fractional descent on a golf ball. I mean, you know, 1 minute on a clock, I always say, is 6 degrees. So 2 degrees of downward strike, and that produced a situation where I hit the ball. I carried it 226, and whatever the ground would give me, and it's projected to be 255. And that, for me, is a really solid shot that I think I could use a lot, and I know I use it a lot, especially in a situation where there's firm fairways. And over in Europe, where they play the British Open, you have the benefit of fairways that are typically fescue, where the ball lands and rolls out, and that's all well and good. So the whole thing there, Justin, is, you know, how are Revolution golfers going to benefit from understanding their 3-wood better? Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, so the great thing about a 3-wood, you know, it's a club intended by and large to be played off the ground. Now, a lot of people like Henrik actually just places the ball. He doesn't even tee up his 3-wood. He likes to feel like he's trapping it slightly. And I bet you, if you put a TrackMan on him and you had him hitting, and they were measuring his numbers, you would see that he'd be hitting down maybe 2, maybe 3 degrees at most, would be my guess. But more important, and you always see me with my trusty hula hoop, his swing circle has a nice relationship to where he wants the golf ball to go. His swing circle, unlike a lot of the club golfers and some of the struggling Revolution golfers, doesn't get to across the target line or to inside out. So to be a very effective 3-wood player, we really have to understand our swing circle, or as TrackMan would put, our swing direction, because we don't want this golf club traveling too across the line, or too inside out. So some simple things to do at home when you're hitting 3-woods. You know, to understand a good 3-wood strike, the ground can tell you a lot. You know, I'd say number 1, can you brush the ground reliably, swing after swing after swing? Okay, that's a big, big deal. The ground changes. I know we practice on a level lie on the range all the time, but when we get in the golf course, we have mild little differentials in what we're standing on. This is the second longest club in the bag, and I would not tell you to ever hit this club when you have a big, big deviation from where you're standing to where the ball is. So if you've got the ball more than an inch or 2 below your feet, I would say, you know what, put the 3-wood back in the bag, because it is a tricky club to control. And I know a lot of Revolution golfers out there maybe don't hit it very far. Their first option is, let's grab the 3-wood, even if they've got that ball way above their feet. Well, when it's such a long golf club, it's tricky to get that sweet spot on that ball. So again, let's make sure that we've got somewhat of a level lie. That's number 1. A few degrees one way or the other, great. You can hit a perfect 3-wood from that. And if you have some questions, we can talk about where to aim, subtle lies where the ball is below your feet or above your feet. But primarily, can we let this golf club work around us in a circle, brush the grass at the golf ball, and carry that circle up into a nice finish relatively in balance? Now, I say relatively because back when I was a kid, it was all about swinging in balance and finishing in balance. Today's modern game, I'll tell you what, guys are trying to rip the cover off it, and they're trying to go for distance. So balance, that's optional. You watch Bubba Johnson, you watch a lot of the longer hitters on tour, and what's really important is impact and how you arrive. I love a beautiful swing to a nice finish. That's a goal for me. However, you know, swing direction and low point control, and you're going to hit some beautiful 3-woods. So, Justin, what's your take on what you watched at the British Open?
You know, one of the things that I noticed during this Open Championship was the way Henrik did not tee the ball up from the tee with his 3-wood.
Right.
And would you say that has to do with turf conditions out there, meaning really hard ground, really hard fairways? He's really just trying to chase the ball out there the best that he can?
That's a huge part of it, you know. And I just got back from Bandon Dunes. We did the first Revolution Golf School, and it was awesome. And we played on fescue firm fairways. So
Right.
any ball that had a low landing angle, a low trajectory when it landed, really chased out, and you got a lot of bonus yardage. Now, at the country clubs in the Midwest, you don't necessarily get that. You know, you
Right.
might get it for a few weeks a year, right? Like right now, there's a deluge of rain, so that's when carry is really important. So when carry is really important, I would say put it on a tee peg. Let's get the ball a half inch off the ground with a 3-wood. When you want to chase it out there and you have the confidence, I hit a 3-wood off the ground from the teeing ground all the time, because typically the teeing ground is maintained really nicely. You've got your choice of where you're going to put your golf ball within the rules of golf between the tee markers within 2 club lengths back, so you can find a lovely place to set your golf ball. And sometimes Revolution golfers, what I'll do is I'll take my 3-wood and I'll just give the ground a little tap. And
Right.
that's something I used to watch Seve Ballesteros do, and he did it, and he had perched the golf ball perfectly on just the tiniest little bump of grass, and that was a beautiful way for him to hit a knuckle ball 2-iron or 3-wood off the tee and let it chase out there in those firm fairways.
Yeah, exactly, Martin. I think what's really important for the Revolution golfers to understand that sometimes because of the condition of the golf course that you're playing, you can actually hit your 3-wood farther than your driver is going to go because
Yep.
of the landing angle that's going to happen. It's probably not going to fly as high typically
Right.
as a driver. And so, you know, for Henrik, who is notably one of the best, if not the best, fairway wood player in the world. I mean, the players on tour do nothing but rave about the way the solid sound, strike, trajectory of his 3-wood. For him, that was a perfect matchup 2 weeks ago at the Open Championship at Turnberry, where he could really get it out there, hitting it low, and chasing the ball along the way. So it just
Yeah, no
worked out
doubt. You know,
perfect.
back to that, Al Geiberger is an old friend of mine. He was a member at a club I used to be head pro at in Palm Desert. And great family. Love the guy. And
Mm-hmm.
when he was still playing on the Champions Tour, we'd practice a little bit at the back of the range. And back in his days with this one particular manufacturer he represented, when he was downwind, Justin, he actually hit his 3-wood because it
Right.
had a better, it spun a bit more for him. It went higher in the air and it stayed up longer. And he said downwind, when the wind got anywhere between 10 miles an hour or stronger, he'd hit his 3-wood, and he said it would go farther than his driver.
Sure.
So there's an opportunity for Revolution golfers too. Sometimes the modern equipment, everything takes spin off, high launch, low spin, high launch, low spin. That's the magic for bombing a driver. Well, sometimes you want a little spin because downwind, that tends to kill those low spin modern golf clubs that they're making these days. I mean, I love them, but sometimes you need a degree or two more loft when you have that downwind condition. So that lesson taught to me from Al Geiberger back in the day is really helpful because that gets the ball spinning a fraction more. It'll keep it up in the air when the downwind forces are trying to punish that ball down a little bit. So that's something to think about. And I know at Bandon Dunes, very, very helpful as well. Lots of
Perfect.
different shots, being mindful of the wind there.
Perfect answer there. All right, I'm going to throw a curveball at you, Martin Chuck, because we haven't had enough so far today.
Bring it.
Question for you. If you were playing the postage stamp, and this goes out to all Revolution golfers, let's say you're playing the postage stamp par
Yeah.
3 that they were playing last week, 132 to 137 yards it played.
Awesome.
You've got to get that ball on the green. I mean, you
Yes.
absolutely have to get it on the green. What are you going to do to get that ball on the green? You know,
It's funny. Well, I think I've got a bit too much club right now, so I'm going to put my
right.
3-wood away, right?
Yep, certainly.
So, there was a hole, and actually 2 days ago on Revolution Golf, we did that tip
Yes.
where your cameraman Dave was out there, and we just filmed a live tip for fun with some Revolution golfers that were out there. And it was a similar type of thing. It was kind of a punch bowl green. It was 130 some odd yards. The wind was pretty fresh. I'm going to say 15 to 20 miles an hour. And that's when, as an educated golfer, and that's what we want Revolution golfers to become, is highly educated. When you are hitting a golf ball, let me get one of my toys in the studio here to make this a little bit more, the imagery of this a little stronger. When you hit a golf ball and you've got this wedge, and we'll call this, every club in your bag, by the way, is a wedge. Martin Hall, welcome, pal.
Do I get a two-stroke penalty late on the tee?
Yeah.
You do. You clearly get a 2-stroke penalty, mate. So good to have you, buddy, all the way from across the pond.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's about 9:20 here in England, and so I'm about 20 minutes late. Give me a pardon if you would, please.
Absolutely.
You're good.
Martin Hall, no question about the par, and I explained to everybody what we were going through. So far, we've covered the 3-wood of Henrik Stenson, and then I threw in another curveball at Martin Chuck because we haven't had enough curveballs today, and that curveball was, I said, Martin, Chuck, if you had to hit the green at the postage stamp, 132 to 137 yards, you had to do it. Explain to Revolution golfers what he would do, and so that's what he's in the middle of describing right now.
I will listen and I will learn.
Okay.
So this is what the swing would look like, and then I'll explain. Then Martin Hall will chime in. So one, take notice, my stance width isn't very wide. Okay, that's going to help me have a little bit of a downward attack angle on the golf ball. My preference isn't to play the ball well back in my stance. My preference is to play it in the middle of my narrow stance. And I know I've got some wind blowing on my left. So this strike right here, this kind of shot, my weight preference is fractionally left. It's going to stay there. And you can see my abbreviated finish, okay? My arms are structured in front of me. My body's rotated onto my lead foot. I'm going to hold that finish. And every shot I hit, especially when I've got that condition, you know, I always try to get to the end. In other words, I'm always thinking about that structured, stick my finish in that condition. I'm not having a soft, flimsy arm swing. What do you think about that, Martin Hall?
Well, I think as just about everything you say, it's really, really good. We all have a take. I grew up playing links golf, just played the other day at Russell Davies actually over here. And one of the things that's always been so helpful for me, we would both know, and in fact I see a trend on tour right now, wind or no wind, there's a lot of sort of cut up. By the way, I'm in our little cottage in England, and so my hitting of a golf ball is going to be one of these little swing groover things like this. I can make a full backswing, but I cannot make a full follow through. Well, I could make a full follow through, but then I'd stick the club through the roof, and Mrs. Hall wouldn't like that. So I'm going to make a cut-off follow through anyway. But I think when you're playing in the wind, some attention to where your thumbs are. I mean, the hands are incredibly important in golf, which is not to say we want them to be all active and willy-nilly, but the hands are incredibly important. And one of the things I've always thought of, Tiger used to do this when he was working with Hank Haney, is after impact, if you want to lower the flight of the ball, after impact, finish with your thumbs down. I think that's a really good one for the wind, to finish with your thumbs down, finish with the left wrist uncocked, thumbs down, just after impact.
Love it.
So you really, I actually have often had the feeling, I actually did an article one time for Golf Magazine where I stood in a swimming pool, I really did. Stood in a swimming pool, hands were in a swimming pool, and it was mainly for the downswing. If you thought this was the level of the swimming pool, for the downswing, it was to get the hands in the swimming pool before the club head. However, when you're talking about the wind, if you could imagine that's the level of the water in the swimming pool, I would like people to get the hands out of the swimming pool, but actually leave the club head in the swimming pool. I think images are really very important in this game of golf. That's something Sir Nick Faldo told me, that he thought images prompted motion, and rather than thinking of a position. So it's either in a swimming pool, keep the club head in the swimming pool, or keep the thumbs down. But, you know, MC Martin Chuck and MH Martin Hall, we both know that Revolution golfers sometimes, oftentimes, too often, there's not enough structure through the ball. So hitting sort of little windy, low shots, even when it's not windy, very helpful for your game. Don't you think, MC?
Oh, I totally do. You know, and at the golf school, I always call it the cornerstone, the foundation of a great swing is really like learning how to make this motion. And it, you know, sometimes I call it, you've seen the Karate Kid movie where I say, you know, there's a chopstick, and as an example, if I grab another aim stick in my studio right here, you know, we want to feel like you can kind of catch the fly over here. We don't want this club head overtaking those hands. So the thought of the hands high and the club head low, you know, pacing the rotation of the body, and you're going to hit some lovely stingers, and you're going to hit that postage stamp green for sure.
Yeah, it's and I think it's interesting that a lot of golfers will be surprised. I mean, it is in the 130-yard range, but even the best players in the world without much wind would still probably be hitting a pitching wedge, sometimes even a 9-iron, and we know they can absolutely mash a 9-iron miles or a pitching wedge, 150, 160 yards. But I can tell you this, I bet there was nobody at the Open Championship who hit a 60-degree lob wedge flat out to the postage stamp. Or if they did, they were only there 2 days.
You know it. And then a lot of 7-irons, a lot of 6-irons.
Right.
One thing I'd like to get into, if you haven't already discussed it, Pete Cowan, great teacher, Henrik's coach, definitely a drill that they have done for years, and I want to show the Revolution golfers this, and then I want to, it's secret time, Justin. I'm going to let some secrets out of the bag. We're going to talk about what Henrik did the first 2 or 3 days with his putting, and this is a drill you won't want to miss, but Henrik Stenson, Peter Cowan, they have a drill, and this is the drill that Henrik Stenson does just about every day, to my understanding. He will take his left hand, his lead hand, and push down as if he was pushing we're back to the swimming pool, as if he was pushing a balloon into a swimming pool. And then he'll take his right hand and he'll push down on that. So he's pushing, just as if there was a ball underwater and it's trying to get out, and by golly, he isn't going to let it. And he's pushing, and it engaged the triceps, and engaged the shoulders, and engaged the pec muscles. And from there, he would then make the swing, and he's pushing and pushing and pushing, and it would be a slow motion move. And apparently he does this about 10 to 15 minutes every day, pushing, 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 pushing the hands away from the turning chest, recruiting the shoulders all the time. Now, you don't have to be on the golf course to do that. You could be, be in the office, actually. And so I have got one thought, and Martin doesn't know this is coming, but one of Martin Chuck's great products is this little thing called the Sammy. Some of you have probably seen it advertised. And I have to say, Chuckster, I love it. And
Thank you. My daughter will smile.
Yeah, well, that's right. I know you named it after your daughter. But there's like a little clip, a little cord, a little lanyard, out it comes. I hope you can see that. But the way I love to use it is to just clip it to, this is sort of Henrik Stenson's drill as you can hit a ball. I hope you can see I'm pulling that little cord out of its house there. And I'm just going to try and keep that structure, keep that width, keep that Peter Cowan, Henrik Stenson pushing, 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 keeping the width coming down, pushing, pushing, pushing. And for most people, that's a fantastic thing to work on, and something we could work on forever. It's something I have to work on, because I know my golf swing, if I'm not working on that, I get too bent with this left arm, sort of. That's what happens when you get a bit older. So pushing, 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 and I think it's, if you haven't looked at the Sammy, you really should. This wasn't meant to be a sales plug, but it's something I really like, and I think you owe it to yourself as a golfer to check it out. Now, I want to get into putting. If I hadn't been late on the tee, I was going to start this webinar by saying, look, everybody would look at Henrik's swing and say how well he hit the ball, and he certainly did, and he shot 63 in the last round, and he made 10 birdies, he did all of those things. He did all of that. But the thing that made the biggest difference was his putting. He birdied 4 of the last 5 holes, so I've got a couple of golf balls here, and I'm going to show you a fantastic drill. Now, I'm going to come in a little bit nearer to the camera. Hope you can see this. I've got one yellow ball, and I've put a stripe on it, and I've got a white ball, and I've got a stripe on that. Now, this is a drill anybody who wants to putt better needs to do. It helped Henrik Stenson win the Open Championship, for goodness sake. Now, I'm going to put these 2 balls on the carpet in a moment, you'll see it, but I'm going to take the yellow ball, and I'm going to hit the yellow ball towards the white ball. Now, if I hit with my putter face square, it will be stripe to stripe, and the white ball will go straight. So let me show you something here. If I hit with the putter face closed, then I will end up hitting the left side of the white ball, and it will go to the right. And if I hit with the putter face open, I will miss the white ball on the right, and the ball will go to the left. Let me show you that.
Don't you call that snooker back where you grew up?
You bit of snooker there, Martin. Yes, bit of snooker. That's right. Pop black. Well done, boy. Well done. So, and you know, there's a lot of talk about should you swing on an arc, should you swing on a a straight line. Can you see, Justin, I'm going to ask you, can you see the yellow ball and the white ball?
I can see it perfectly.
Super. Now, I've just got a couple of alignment rods down here. And the goal is to hit the yellow ball into the white ball, and that the white ball would run straight on the same line. That would be an indication that the putter face was absolutely square to the yellow ball when I hit it. Now, big point here, if you didn't learn anything else tonight, big point, the direction the ball goes in with the putter, not the distance, but the direction is at least 90% the angle of the face when you contact the ball, at least 90%. Paul Hurrian, who I listen to, says even a bit more than that. To the extent that, in fact, under 10 feet, the path of the stroke is almost irrelevant. Almost irrelevant. So, one of the problems I see with putting devices is most of them work on the path, which is only maybe 10%, and the direction of the face. So here's a very simple drill. Now the first one, I'll just make my normal stroke, which usually pulls the ball a bit to the left, and I hope you can see as I pull the ball a bit to the left, I'll hit the white ball, but the white ball went to the right. I hope you could see that.
Clearly.
If I hit with the face closed, the yellow ball goes left, which makes the white ball go right. That's closed face. And if I go the other way, if I hit with the face open, then I'll hit the right side of the white ball, and the white ball will go to the left. So if I hit with the face open, you can see the white ball goes to the left. Now here's the thing. Henrik Stenson apparently was on the putting green at Royal Troon an astonishing amount of time just putting two balls like this, trying to make, he wasn't using a yellow ball and a white ball. I just did that for this get-together tonight. But trying to make the yellow ball run into the white ball and go fairly straight. Now, the other thing with that is it'll get you used to hitting the ball firmly, which on the slightly slower greens of Royal Troon was very helpful. So that's one of the keys to Henrik Stenson's great putting. There is a second key I'd like to give you, and these are both things you can do at home. MC knows, JT knows, MH knows, and HS being Henrik Stenson knows, moving the lower body when you putt, disastrous. Now, as I said earlier, I love imagery, so because of that, I've got me a little flashlight here. I think you can see there's a, well, there's supposed to be a bit of light. There we go. Can you see that flashlight, Justin, Martin?
Perfect.
For sure.
Just imagine we've taken you to the North Staffordshire Infirmary here, and I've put a couple of flashlights just on the edge of your knees. What you do not want when you're putting is to be moving your lower body. Now, this is a little tip I've learned fairly recently, and it is fabulous for helping keep the lower body still. If you had a flashlight coming out of both knees, when you set up, turn both knees outwards a little bit. Doesn't have to be much, but just flare both knees outwards a tiny bit. Can you see how I'm turning that flashlight there, Mark?
It looks great. Yeah, sure can.
Yeah. Having done that, the next thing is to tighten up your glutes, firm up your rump. And if you do those two things, if you turn your knees out a little bit and you tighten up your butt, then it's going to be a lot easier to keep the lower body still. If you keep the lower body rock solid still and you practice hitting the yellow ball into the white ball with tonight's example, so that you improve the ability to hit the ball with the face square, then very definitely you're going to start the ball more on the line. So that's partially why Stenson putted so well. Any comments, MC?
Yeah, totally. I love that. And you know what's nice about that is when you do those drills, and I grabbed one of the golf balls off Coach Courtney's desk here, and I'm doing the same thing here in the studio, and I love it. And it reminds me of when I played some pool as a younger man, and how to just let's make those two balls collide properly. And if that transfers nicely, Martin, on the golf course, because that imagery, you can carry that feeling of success with you to the golf course. So any of those exercises, when you prove to yourself that you deliver the face beautifully to the ball, it starts on line. That's a confidence builder. And when you have those drills that build confidence, now you're going in the right direction.
Good. Now, so there was another player. There was another player there at the Open Championship, wasn't there? Mr. Lefty, Mr. Mickelson. What what a tournament he had.
Beautifully.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? You start the last round 1 behind, you shoot 65, and you lose by 3.
Unimaginable almost.
It was one of the greatest rounds I've ever seen from both of them. And we know that Phil has been working with, well, he's from your area, isn't he, Martin? He's from Greyhawk. Andrew Getson?
He is. He's not too far up the road, up in Scottsdale. Sure is.
And it seems to me with, and I'm sure he keeps it fairly sort of, close to the chest what they're working on. I understand that, but it's clear to me that they've definitely got Phil's swing a bit more on what might be called a neutral plane going back. For me, a neutral plane. I hope you can see this. I'm going to put those 2 sticks down again. I'm an avid believer in using whatever it takes to get people to play well, and I'm an avid user of lasers, laser pointer pens. Justin, can you see that laser on the ground?
Can see it perfectly, Martin.
So I think, and there's a little bit of Homer Kelly here for sure, and a little bit of Ben Doyle, who's certainly influenced both Martin Chuck and Martin Hall, but to be on a plane that's aimed to get your swing direction fairly steady, whichever laser would be pointing at your target line or flashlight, it should be, whichever laser is pointing down, we're pointing at your target line. And I would say Phil and Andrew have certainly spent some amount of work on that because, typically, historically, I mean, I've known Phil since 1991, since he turned pro. I watched him then. His mistake has been to take the club inwards. I mean, obviously he's a lefty, but to take the club inwards too soon, and then the laser that would be coming out of his grip would be out over there, and then he'd have to sort of reroute it somewhere on the way down. Now, he's done it incredibly well, and I'm not saying, gosh, he had it wrong. He's won 43 tournaments, I think it is. But for people looking to be a little bit more on plane, if you could just picture, or even get a couple of flashlights or laser pointer pens, you would want the club to be pointing at the target line. Whichever end is pointing down, I hope you can see that's pointing about at the target line. And that gives you your best chance of managing the face. Now, as Martin and I were preparing for this, we also talked a little bit about his wrist conditions as he started his downswing. And certainly Martin, Chuck, and I were both of the opinion that his wrist conditions have changed a little bit. I think as 2 teachers, 2 sort of golf nutters, as we really are, we'd say they're a little better. So, Martin, what would you describe as an observable difference in his wrist conditions as he's swinging down, do you think?
So, to add to that, so I think what you picked up on was awesome, and congratulations to both the men. I mean, Phil's my age. I first played with him in the '86 U.S. Junior. Great guy, amazingly creative golfer. He loves the game. I mean, more than anybody. It's awesome to see. He still loves the game. When I saw Phil play golf, when he got in trouble, on the way down, his lead wrist got a little bit more cuppy, got a little narrow in transition. And what has to happen, when you get narrow at his speed, and he's still capable of really high club head speed, when that lead wrist gets into that narrow cuppy position, there's a lot of magic that it takes to kind of stand up and square that club face. So what I'm seeing with him and his coach, I see a lot better structure, and I popped on the wrist educator here, a lot better structure in his downswing, where the club face is actually, in my opinion, already squared, a lot better than it used to be. Therefore, at impact, he doesn't have as much random face rotation because he's always been a brilliant iron striker and a creative flighter of the golf ball, whether he hits down on or hits it high. But it's been this guy, and obviously the putter from time to time that's got him sideways, but he drove it beautifully at Troon. When the heat was on, when the wind was up, when the OB was there, when the gorse was on the other side, and that what I saw differently, Martin, was those wrist conditions allowed him to stay a little wider. The face was in a little bit more reliable condition, and I thought he drove it great. So congratulations to those 2 guys for a job well done.
Yeah, no, I would agree 100% with what you've said there, MC Martin Chuck, and I think when that left wrist gets very, well, lead wrist, I'm sorry. When that lead wrist gets very cupped on the way down, it requires excessive closing of the club face, very rapid rotation of the shaft to square it up. It doesn't make it impossible, but it makes it more difficult. If you wanted to look at the sort of the two extremes, probably Phil would have one of the fastest closing rates on tour, and probably someone like Jim Furyk would have one of the slowest closing rates on tour. You can see that after impact. Now, not to say that Jim Furyk has had a better career than Phil Mickelson, although it has been rather good. But you'll see with you'll see with Jim Furyk, the club is closing more slowly, more in sympathy with the rotation of the body. So it's probably a little easier for him to hit it straight.
I would agree. One thought, too. I've got one of my son. I'm always stealing my son Jackson's toys from the golf room and playroom at the house, Martin. And sometimes he's like, Dad, have you seen my sword? And I say, no, I haven't seen it, son. No, I've got it at the golf studio. But if you think about this Revolution golfer...
I'm going to report you to Jackson. I'm going to tell him.
Report me to my 7-year-old standing around. Where'd my sword go? But here's a sword, and think about this. I mean, if I was gonna slice this big melon that I put here on the mat, would I really want to take the edge of this sword and twist the blade away a whole bunch to try to time me relocating that at high speed to slice this melon in half? Doesn't make any sense. We'd take that blade, we'd look at the melon, we'd gather up, we'd recruit our body, and we'd be a wonderful melon slicer, easy as pie. But in golf, we always try to do something to acquire swing length, and in doing so, Martin, I know I'm standing on the lesson tee in Phoenix, and you're in England right now, but we see people try to get way too many angles, create all kinds of funky elbow conditions and wrist conditions for swing length, and then they don't have a chance to get that face squarely centered on the ball.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned center, because I'm going to come to that. We're going to come to the MHT that everybody has. But just one thing you said, Jimmy Ballard, who's certainly been an influence on many of us as a teacher, he always said, and rightly so, big angles in the arms and the elbows, and those big angles mean big curves, and I quite agree with that. So if accuracy is what you're looking for, more structure, less sort of cupping of the left wrist, less flipping and rolling of the hands gives you a better chance. Phil, he's Phil Magic Mickelson. I mean, he's so gifted. However, I would say this: everyone who played at the Open Championship, everybody who's contending will be this week at Baltusrol at the PGA Championship. All the best. They hit it smack bang in the middle of the golf club. Never underestimate how important it is to hit in the middle. So in preparing for this wasn't why I was late on the tee, actually. That was gremlins in the network. But I put a little bit of impact tape here. I hope you can see this on my driver. There's a little
got my
dot
Dr.
there.
Scholes.
Dead center. Well, Dr. Scholes is fantastic for sure. Impact tape is great, and it doesn't matter whether it's an iron or a wood. If you hit it off center, any right-hand golfer, if your impact point is somewhere out towards the toe, you've put you've put some hook in the mix. You may not hook it, you might actually save a slice. If you hit it in the heel, do you see where the point of this pencil is here, everybody? That is the black hole of direction and distance. It is awful. It's the Death Star for golf balls. So lower in the heel is the worst possible place you could hit it. Now, let me give you something. My thing with golf is trying to give people stuff they can do at home, they can do away from the golf course. And a lot of times I will put tees in the ground. Well, Mrs. Hall wasn't being much of a sport. She wouldn't let me drill any holes in the carpet here. So I had to get creative, didn't I? So I went to the local store and I got what's called blue tack. Just sort of like, it's almost like plasticine really. And I just took 2 cocktail sticks and put them in at an angle. Now, there's a little gateway there. How wide is that gateway? It's just wide enough. I think you can see it's just wide enough if there was a golf ball there. I hope you can see this. Am I doing okay, Justin?
Yes.
You can see that the club could pass through there, and if I had a ball in the middle, I'm not going to hit one at my computer, although earlier I felt like it, I must say. Stay. There. But if I had a ball in the middle, if I make my club pass between these two sticks, then I'm going to hit it in the middle of the club. Now, on the golf course, you could use two tees, but I'm always thinking of things that people could do at home. So you can see here, this is just a piece of cardboard, blue tack, two sort of kebab sticks. You could actually put it on the carpet, and while you're watching the PGA this weekend, you won't take any divots, so Mrs. Hall won't get upset, or Mrs. Chuck won't get upset. Jackson might.
I've already replaced carpet in my house, pal.
Something from Jackson, but you see, everybody has a mishit tendency, and if you just started taking practice swings between those two little sticks, you are improving your coordination. Now, sometimes people say to me, what does it take to be a good player? I hope you can see this, that I'm swinging between those pegs there.
Sure can.
What does it take to be a good player? What I believe is people who do really well is what you do every day that counts. If you just found 5 minutes to do that every day, even without hitting golf balls, your ability to get the club on the ball would probably improve. And where mishits are concerned, I think you have to isolate, integrate, and eliminate. Isolate, integrate, and eliminate. If you would practice with two tees on the range, you would find that you're going to hit one of these more often than the other. If you are a heel hitter, it will be the outer peg you'll hit. If you're a toe hitter, it would be the inner peg that you would hit. And if you practice between them, if you isolate, yes, I'm a toe hitter, then you can just practice with the inward one. If for a toe hitter, I'm a bit of a toe hitter. For a toe hitter, I actually don't even need that outer one. I can just practice with the inner one here. If you are a heel hitter, you could just practice with that one there. And I would say a lot of good players have hit many balls really, really close. Now, sometimes people put a 2x4 there, and that's very penal. But a little sort of cocktail stick, that's not going to frighten anybody. Now, Martin and I were talking, MC and I were talking just the other day when we had a little sort of Skype together, and he was talking about the great Mo Norman, the great Canadian Mo Norman. Tell him about Mo and, you know, the sweet spot, and what a wild driver of the ball he wasn't.
He was this, you know, he went professionally, one ball out of play in his professional career. Now, I bet you that on tour, it'd be hard-pressed to say one ball out of play per month during a month for a tour player. But, you know, I've got some Dr. Scholl's on my driver. I'm going to take a cut at one because I'm not in your living room, and your wife won't get mad at me. So we'll see how we do here. And then let's take a look at this, at the contact. And not too shabby, just a fraction Healy. And, you know, I'd say that that's probably the farthest off the sweet spot Mo would hit it in about a 200 ball driver session. The beautiful thing about Mo was that, you know, he fell in love with the game as an early teen. It was his peaceful way of kind of disappearing to a driving range, sorting it out, figuring it out, watching, observing, learning. And I tell you what was interesting. He used to use long tees, Martin. You know, and I've got a long tee here as an example, but, you know, so here is about a 3.5-inch tee, and he would use that same tee until it would wither away. He never ever had a descending strike that would smash a tee in half. He always had a nice level, mildly upward strike on the golf ball, catching the ball up on the tee, and he always had very low spin, high launch, lovely ball striker. You know, and everybody says that in Martin's case, in Mo's case, you know, was he long? In fact, there was a Facebook thread today among some professionals. He was plenty long for the courses in his era because you don't win 30-some-odd professional events if you can't hit it out of your shadow. He hit it in the center of the face with good presentation of the golf club, and it looked a little funky, but he sure did hit it beautifully on the button every time.
Well,
hey guys,
I actually saw him hit balls one time, and it was very impressive. Justin, have I got time for one more thing for the Revolution golfers?
you do have time. I just wanted to jump in just for a second, let everybody know we've had some questions come in, and I'm going to try to get to a couple of those. One quick question, Martin M.H., before you jump into this, that I think we could easily answer. On the tees on the ground, how far apart should you put them? Obviously, I think it's so the club will fit there between the two tees, but should you give yourself a little bit of room on each side? That was a question that was brought into the chat.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and I think the answer to that is it depends on your standard. I mean, gosh, my sister's just started playing golf, so I'm not going to put the two tees around her club as tight as I would put them around my wife's club, because she's a two-time Solheim Cup player. So I think they're like training wheels, and I think you give yourself a chance to succeed. There's a corridor. The better you get, the tighter you get them, so that eventually you want to be able to get where you are hitting through a very, very, very narrow spot eventually. But that would be in the world-class category. I mean, I would give people a good amount of room to start with, and then just tighten it up.
Perfect.
I know I was late to the party today, but can I just mention, because we're getting towards the end of our time, unfortunately, I'd stay on all night. But can I mention one thing? And Martin, Chuck, I'm sure you have one. But I thought for the viewers who are watching, I'd like to tell the viewers what's the one thing I wish I had known many years ago that I feel would have made me a better player. I was a decent player. I had my card in Europe for 2 years, played a number of national opens, but never had the success I wanted. But if there was one simple drill that I wish I had done more of, that I wish I had known, that achieved so much by doing so little, it would simply be this one. It would be to take a club cover or a glove, VJ did it with a glove, and just put it under my lead arm and hit three-quarter shots with that. Now, sometimes when I do this at the club at Ibis, where I teach, people say, yeah, I've heard that. My question is, yeah, you've heard it. Do you do it? Do you actually do it? It might just help.
You know, and I would say, I would jump in on that.
Everybody's got a head cover, for crying out loud. Even if you live in the woods, you've got a head cover. So stick a club cover under your lead arm, and for me it would be hit short shot, especially keeping that connection through the hitting area. Martin, Chuck, the thing you wish you had known 25 years ago.
You know, I would say I love that. The thing I would say, and I'm going to grab a Sammy again, is for the sole purpose of structure. I think swings, you can break them down two ways. You can a full swing which has centrifugal ability to kind of keep you at a nice radius, and an overtaking that takes you kind of to a finish. And I was a pretty good centrifugal swinger. George Knudson was my coach, and he was a beautiful striker. Where I lacked, and I was like you, I played professionally for a few years too, and you know, really just for a cup of coffee, and didn't beat a whole lot of good players, even though I played with a lot of great players that you know well. The thing I didn't do well, Martin, was that the full swings were fine, all the centrifugal swings were fine, the big radius swings were fine, the small radius swings where this little particular shot off of a tight little fairway, that little guy right there that flies 20 yards, has a bit of check and releases to the pin, I wasn't very good at that. And you know what? Neither was George Knudson. So I didn't understand that I had to kind of put in a bit of that structure, put in and sustain that radius with my pivot. And boy, that's the one thing, if I could go back, because I'll tell you who was my buddy? Mike Weir. But you can't see it. You can't see what somebody's feeling, right? And it wasn't until actually Peter Croker, probably a friend of yours, Peter Croker taught me that in my early 20s, and that made a world of difference for my short, you know, that intermediate wedge play that's critical.
Absolutely, and I'm sure you could probably ask even the people playing at Baltusrol this week, is the one thing you wish you'd known 10 or 15 years ago. We all have it, and so our mission at Revolution Golf, whether it's Martin Chuck, Martin Hall, Sean Foley, Andrew Rice, Jim McLean, whoever it is, our whole faculty, our goal is to try and make it as painless as possible. I almost said as easy as possible, but there's nothing easy about this game, but as painless as possible for you to play better golf. And that's why we all get on so well. We all have exactly the same passion, including our CEO, Justin Tupper. We are golfaholics. What can I tell you? That's where we are. Any questions, Mr. Tupper? Any more questions?
Yeah, there are a bunch through here. I'm going to say that we just jump back, Martin Hall, and I want to hear. And I've seen there's quite a few questions that came in about Henrik Stenson's 3-wood. We heard MC's observations of it, and just wanted to get your observations of it again. It had a lot to do with what we talked about, was a lot to do with extremely center contact, like you guys just talked about. The conditions over there were perfect for hitting 3-wood and chasing the ball out there with the firm fairways. For a man who's played his share of links golf, and your observations of Henrik Stenson, what would you say the importance of the 3-wood is over there, and what did you notice that Henrik did so well? Martin Hall.
Well, I think I would rewind a bit, and Martin may have mentioned it while I was in the ether of the internet universe, but he had a horrible time in 2001, 2002, and very nearly quit the game. He had the yips with the driver, the full-blown yips. He would hit it 100 yards offline. I remember him walking off the golf course in Dubai saying he was never going to play again. So there would be obviously he's got through it. His sports psychologist at that time, let me just look up his name. I did have it ready. His sports psychologist was, I can't find it now, I apologize for that. But his sports psychologist had him hitting balls with his eyes closed at that time. And I think that's how he found his way back. I think once you've had something like that, you're a little bit like an alcoholic in the sense that you're never fully over it. You can become very functional, but you're never fully over it. He's a big, strong man. I saw him on the PGA today. He was hitting it 300 yards with that 3-wood. If you can hit it 300 yards with the 3-wood, I don't know that you need driver, and I think just throwing it on the deck like he does and hitting down at it does help keep that lead wrist a little bit bowed and help fight off the hook. So I think there's all those factors in there. I also think I very nearly qualified for the Open Championship at Troon many years ago. And it was 2 days qualifying, and after the first round I was well in, so I thought, I'll go and have a look at Royal Troon and see what it's like. And I have to say, I stood on the first tee, and it terrified me. And I missed qualifying by a shot. It terrified me. Because I went over from Glasgow Gales, looked at it, I thought, I can't get the ball down that fairway. So, I mean, they make no mistake, they are playing fairways that really aren't much wider than the room in my cottage here. They might be 25 yards wide, but effectively they're not, because they're fast and they're firm and they're bumpy. They're hitting it down a 10-yard corridor. So I think if you've got enough distance, you don't need the driver. Bit of a long-winded answer, but I don't think there's a simple answer. If I do bump into him in Orlando, I'm definitely going to ask him for sure.
Sure.
I do think it's interesting with Dustin Johnson and with Henrik Stenson, the U.S. Open champion, the Open champion. They've both got their idiosyncrasies in the golf swing, and it shows it's okay. I mean, Henrik's move away from the ball. Let me get my 3-wood. I mean, it's quite unusual. So if there's any coaches watching or any good young players watching, careful what you change, because if you look at Henrik, he has this waggle up in the air and he's sort of energizing the club head. But his first move actually is to straighten his lead leg, lean back into his right foot, and then take the club back beautifully. Now, it typically wouldn't be something you would teach people, but that he does. Just like Dustin Johnson's, club face at the top, it wouldn't be something you would typically teach people, but if you do that and you hit the ball well, I would say don't be too quick to change it. To me, a good golf swing is one that's effective and repetitive.
For sure. I think with Henrik Stenson in that 3-wood, it was just that is his club. Everyone tells him he's the best player with a 3-wood in the world. He thinks he is, and so I think coming down the stretch, that was a perfect golf course for him to have his favorite club right there. So I'm sure that helped him coming down the stretch.
I'm just going to add one comment to that, and I think it's in this game of golf. Jim Flick would always tell me the golf gods sometimes look favorably on you, sometimes they don't. We don't know through our golfers. I know there is an element of luck at times. It would have taken nothing for Henrik Stensson's ball to roll into that bunker at 18. Jeff Russell, who's a friend of mine from the golf channel, he took a picture and he tweeted it. It was about not even one pace from going in that bunker. And if he had gone in there, the whole thing might have changed. But it didn't, and he won, and we're all very pleased for him. But sometimes when it's your time, it's your time.
I thought the exact same thing when I watched it, and they were talking about that bunker Greg Norman, hit it into, and I just thought, my goodness, when it came up short, I said, there's nothing that he can do wrong. Today is his day. Good for Phil for putting up such a fight, never letting down, and I read the statistic. Phil Mickelson would have won 141 of the 145 Open Championships with that score. Just incredible golf.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, hopefully, a good week this week. A bit of reminiscing from a Baltusrol, I hope.
Exactly. Well, listen, I want to wrap this up. I want to say thank you so much to both of you, Martins. Martin Hall, I'm sorry we had a little bit of an issue at the beginning, but frankly, your buddy Martin Chuck took over, and we didn't miss a beat. I think when you watch the replay, you'll have even a little more faith in Martin Chuck and I. We had your back there. So.
I have all the faith in the world in Martin Chuck. I think he's great.
And a couple things I want to close with. One, again, I just want to thank you both. I want to thank all the viewers. I can't believe how many people we had on this today. It's just incredible. It's phenomenal times that we live in to be able to do this. I want to thank Jason Henderson, who helped us put this together. Really appreciate it. Couple other final notes. One is, if everyone goes to the URL buildabettergolfgame.com, so that's buildabettergolfgame.com/notify me. Now, nothing to buy there, but we are going to be doing some very professional live cast next week from the Ibis Club down in West Palm Beach with Martin Hall. And we're going to be covering some of the questions that we didn't get to today. We're going to be outside, and we're just going to do a bunch of really great question and answer with some other topics. So that will notify you of that. Also, we are going to be starting a launch for Martin Hall's video program that we have recently filmed down at Ibis. Had a ton of fun doing it. Learned so much. That it was I think it was the 47th through 50th or 51st DVD that I've been a part of, and it was so neat to be able to be a part of it and learn and pick up on things were absolutely new. So when you get on that notification, you'll be included there too. And then finally, we promised, you folks have stuck with us, we did a drawing, Jason did a drawing for a couple virtual golf lessons. We will be getting in touch with you guys. These will be Skype golf lessons, and there's 2 different winners. The first winner is William from North Carolina, wins a private virtual golf lesson with Martin Hall. So congratulations, William. We will be in touch. And Justin, great name, from Cyprus, wins a private virtual golf lesson with Martin Chuck. And again, we will be getting in touch with you guys. These will be done over Skype. So just one last thing to add. Again, it's bettergolfgame.com/notify me. Going to be a really fun week next week. Martin will be coming back across the pond. I hope you're ready to be a little sweaty, Martin Hall. It's not quite the climate you've been in for the last few days, but we'll have a great time.
Looking forward to it very much.
Yeah. Anything you want to close with, Martin Chuck? What are you up to right now, Martin Chuck? You were out in Bandon.
The other Martin, the Canadian Martin, is back in Phoenix right now. I've been having a great time doing golf schools, and we have the Revolution Golf School in Bend, Oregon, in August, and I'm super pumped. Andrew Rice and I are going to be heading up to do that one. So that's August 22nd and 23rd. Yeah. And if you haven't been to Central Oregon, do yourself a favor. It is at Sun River Resort, and we are pumped to help you play better golf. So that's next on my agenda. Right now, I'm just taking care of the wife and kiddos and teaching some random lessons here in Phoenix.
Oh, perfect.
I'm stealing Jackson's toys.
and taking Jackson's toys.
Exactly, and I think this is no great scarcity marketing ploy. I think there is now one spot left there for that in Bend. I've seen a few come through today, so I believe
Sweet.
there is one single spot left, and that is about a month from now, a little bit before August 22nd. Is that right, Martin?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
sure is. My old stomping grounds.
Well, perfect.
Beautiful
Well,
spot.
congratulations to the two winners. I really appreciate it. One last thing, it is buildabettergolfgame.com/notify me to get on that list. We're going to have a great time at the Ibis Club next week with Martin Hall. It's all going to be Martin Hall week at Revolution Golf. Thanks to Martin Chuck. Thanks again, Martin Hall. And that's it, guys. We'll see you real soon. This will be recorded for everyone as well. Bye for now.